I'm Diane, and we're here today with Narendra, who is a spiritual master teacher and the founder of Spirituality for Results. Thank you for watching. So I wanted to ask you about spiritual paths. It's very in vogue nowadays to people pursue their spiritual path, and with that terminology, and then to reach enlightenment, which seems to be the word everybody's using nowadays. And there's so many ways to do that, and there's a lot of books and people on the internet, and with the proliferation of information, we can become overwhelmed with all the different ways that one might do that. So what are your thoughts about the best approach or way, or what would you say?
Let's first understand what we're trying to seek. First of all, I see the term spirituality is used rather loosely. Mm-hmm. Sometimes people think that just because they went to a church, it means they're becoming spiritual. It's not necessarily true. Mm-hmm. Or because they follow some practice, they think they're becoming spiritual. Let's call things for what they are. When you are going to a typical church or a temple, and if you are reading scriptures, or if you are participating in certain spiritual practices or rituals, then you are really following a ritual. And then you are also reading scriptures. That's what you're doing. The real spirituality, you can say, if you want to be kind of correct about it, is when your spiritual dimension, and I will go back and repeat myself, we have 4 dimensions: physical, mental, heart or emotional, and spiritual. Uh-huh. So you cannot be open in mental dimension if your mind is not healthy. Mm-hmm. Like if you see people who have a mental issue, then you can say mentally that person is not healthy. Uh-huh. And how can that person be a mental giant or considered as a mental giant? Uh-huh. Or same way, there are people whose hearts are not open. They cannot feel feelings, or their hearts have become numbed, or they have so many crusts around their heart that they can neither sense your feelings or they can feel their own thing. Uh-huh. So that dimension is not open. Uh-huh. So in the truest sense, you are stepping into spirituality or zone of spirituality when your spirit dimension is open. Uh-huh. And one way to look at this is in that way, in terms of being technically right. But in a bigger sense, if you look at it in a bigger sense, the purpose of spirituality is for us to learn the art and science of life itself. How do I blossom to the fullest of what I was meant to be?
And that's being the spiritual
dimension? Right. That is the spiritual goal. That's the goal of spirituality. And in original sense, all religions were created with that goal in mind. Mm-hmm. But what has happened is, over a period of time, if you look at it, there are different masters who started that religion. All religions were started based on their teachings. Mm-hmm. So over a period of times, things got misunderstood, got mistranslated, or context shifted. So people have their scriptures. Mm-hmm. And people also have their rituals and dogmas. Uh-huh. But how many people, as a result, are really being guided into the realm of the Spirit? And then they are becoming like their own master. Because if you remember in the Bible, Jesus said, even you can do things that I can, and maybe even more. Mm-hmm. And I'm still looking for that person who can say, yeah, he was right. Here, look at what things I can do. Because for whatever reason, the essence of religion somehow got diluted. Mm-hmm. And so that goal is not fully realized then. But with the information being more available at a global scale, just like you said, now all this information is becoming available to people. And you can really look at all this information all over the world and see what are the possible scenarios and what are possible choices you can make. And that's a wonderful gift to all of us. And we don't have to be limited by one church or one temple, because if it does not serve you, then it's really keeping you limited. Is it making sense?
Yeah. So how would we? What's a good way that you have found personally to navigate all that information into, like I think you said, one way we can tell that if we're even spiritually growing is how are we finding our life growth path or calling? Is that what you said? Or
yes.
Did I hear that right?
Yes. Ultimately, in a bigger sense, the goal of spirituality is to help us become a whole person. And become fully enlightened, fully realized, so that we can take best advantage of the human gift that God has given us. That's the idea. And it's not such an impossible task, because a lot of times people think that it takes way too much work. No, not really. Because all that is already resident inside of us. But it's covered by several different layers of misunderstandings and ignorance, of self-condemnations, and a whole lot of other experiences that we have forgotten who we are. And so whichever path gets you to that state in a faster way is the path for you.
And will we know when we've gotten there? Will it be this evident?
Yes, for example, if you look at different paths, like if you realize some paths focus too much on devotion, or some of the paths too much, they rely purely on mental inquiry, and they kind of can run intellectual circles with arguments around each other, but their heart is not open. So they're not able to grow beyond that. So that's another thing. If you look at a lot of churches, if you just push development of the mind itself, then how are you going to have the experiences?
So you kind of have the feeling something's missing, and then that's what leads you forth to keep pursuing.
If you compare it to a simple dating scenario, like the intellectual circle, they will give you all the books teaching you how to read, how to know about how to date. But you never really went out on a date.
Oh, very good.
So what's the advantage? Or if you look at it even a lower level, which I call a school of hard knocks. School of hard knocks is I'm not going to go to a church and I'm not going to read a book. And I'm not going to learn from anybody. I'm going to just discover life as I experience it. So they're going to go to the bars, drink a few beers, and they like somebody, they're going to ask her for a date. Sometimes they get this face slapped. Sometimes they're going to get beaten up by their boyfriends because nobody taught them that before you ask him, you make sure that she doesn't have a boyfriend. Or how to ask a girl. You don't squeeze her in the wrong place and ask her for a date.
Oh my.
But there are people who are doing things like this. So they choose to learn that way. Or there are other schools of spiritual growth. They say, well, sorry, we are only devotional path. So they are only going to concentrate on devotion, but then they don't develop the minds or the critical thinking. And as a result, what happens is they become just a bunch of feel-good kind of school of spirituality that we feel it, but I have no ability to use my critical mind because I never developed it, so I can't find a job or keep a job, I can't balance my book, and I can't solve my problems. So how are they going to grow spiritually if they are not going to be able to maintain have a decent support system. So everything needs to be paid attention to. Mm-hmm. I mean, we cannot just condemn the things of this world. For mm-hmm. example, if you need a decent house and a decent car mm-hmm. and a certain amount of money to maintain yourself, then you need to develop your mind. Mm-hmm. You need to develop your critical way of thinking, that how do I see a bigger picture and help myself, that I'm not worrying about money anymore. Mm-hmm. And you have to get to that point. From that platform, now you can reach out into the sky and develop your spiritual life.
Yeah, kind of Maslow's needs kind of thing.
Correct. Whereas a lot of people make the mistake that, well, geez, I don't need money and I don't need any of these things. But then you find they were going to teach somebody how to meditate or teach, and I'm just using examples, not that I think badly of any one of them. Somebody's going to teach them yoga or some breathing techniques or whatever. But they are using those things to survive. But at the result, sometimes they end up living hand to mouth. That's a very poor spirituality. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that we are supposed to live like that. We are supposed to live in abundance and a lot of health and happiness and joy. And we're supposed to have all the wonderful gifts God has created for us. But for that, we have to develop a mind. Anything of this world, if you are going to really master that, as long as we're going to live in this world, we have no other choice. So we might as well master that, develop the right skills of handling money, handling time, handling our energies, keeping our appointments, learning to communicate with people, the teamwork, setting goals, setting priorities, etc., etc. Those are wonderful things we are all learning from the professional side of the life. And those are not bad things, because they help us and greatly put our mind at peace. Now with that peace, we can take our spiritual development to the highest possible level. Now if you address that part of spiritual this thing, then you have to at least, at the minimum, be able to look at the big picture and ask a question. Whenever you go to a temple or church, okay, what will you do for me? Or how far can you get me?
Oh, really? Instead of like, what can I contribute to this body of believers or this congregation or gathering of community?
Yeah, people are very unfair to themselves because they go join a church, because their parents joined it, or because in that part of the area only have Baptist church, so they join it for social reasons, or because they want to belong someplace. Believe me, most human beings, and this is the curse of humanity, that most human beings are born with inferiority complex. And so they want to belong to some group so they can say, I'm somebody now, you know. But what if you end up being somebody wrong? You're still somebody, but that's not what you wanted to be. I mean, you remember Lily Tomlin? She used to always say this, I always wanted to be somebody. Now many years have gone by, and now I realize I should have been more specific.
Oh!
You see? It's in the same way. Don't treat your church or your spiritual path any differently than you do your shopping. So if you're going to TJ Maxx, or if you're going to Myers, or if you go to any of these stores, you ask, what is the material? How much is it costing? Is there sale going on? Is it a good material? What is the return policy? You know? But how many people talk about return policy in the church? Well, I'll give you 10%. But how far are you going to get me? And if I don't get there in the time you say, will I get my money back?
So kind of like a job interview. You really
Exactly.
You interview them as well.
I mean, I know it sounds radical and crazy, but we have to become sensitive to the fact, look, everybody has to be responsible for what they're doing. And in my opinion, why should spiritual community, whether they are ministers or pastors or teachers or priests, why should they be exception? They signed up for this job. They have to do a decent job. And so as far as you and me or any one of us is going there, we are their customers. And today's generation is very different. Wait till you see the next generation getting ready. They're going to ask him even harder questions. Just like Judge Judy says, you know, questions are going to get harder. Believe me. And if they're not ready to answer the questions in some healthy way, they're going to be out of business. So my point is, we have to, first of all, as a seeker, know our own mind. What are we seeking? And some of them survive at those lower levels, if I may say, because people are really not asking for much. They're saying, well, I don't want to know much. Just bless me and I'll go away.
We're even not even asking those questions. Which,
No.
You don't
A lot of
make a
people,
plan, you don't get anything.
believe me, they ask more questions when they're buying a motorcycle. Or they spend more time and energy trying to discuss about a sports team or lands, who's going to win, why they're going to win, that player is injured, or taking bets on it. They don't ask any questions of these people. So in my opinion, before this question can be answered, we also have to consider what kind of student are you. If you are really not a very curious and progressive student, if you are really half-hearted about going to school, you're not going to learn much. You're going to come back with maybe a piece of paper, but you may not learn anything. Or you may not even get to a point where you get a degree or education. So, again, my heart is not, and I'm not concerned about people who don't want to learn. That's their choice, and we got to respect that. But my concern is those people who are very sincere and who are trying very hard, and they've been crying tears of blood for many, many, many years, that how come I'm not progressing? How come I'm still suffering? I want to serve, I want to give love, and I'm sincere, and I've tried everything, why is it not working? My focus is on those people. I'd much rather spend my time with those people, and I say, no, there are answers out there. There are answers out there, but you have to go about it same way you went into school. Don't fake through the school. Don't take too many breaks. Don't sleep through the whole semester, because then you're not going to end up anywhere. Do your homework. Ask your teacher and your system questions. And if you're not getting good answers, do something about it. Make use of your power of choice. We are living in the greatest country of the world. In that sense that we can ask those questions. In certain countries, you're not allowed to ask too many questions. So, that way, if you really think about it, there's a low type of student, middle kind of student, or a high class student. When I say high class, it's not necessarily in terms of getting grades or something, but that person is very diligent and is very sincere about his education and asks questions, does his homework, and is very, very honest about it. The lowest class says, I'm here only to play around. I don't ask questions, I don't know homework, and I don't even show to class many times. So who do you think is going to make more progress?
Oh, right.
You see my point? So the spiritual system is very much the same way. So you have three types of students, and you have three types of spiritual systems: low, middle, high. Low class, they don't care, they don't answer questions, they don't even give an opportunity to answer questions, or they give you some wishy-washy answers. And believe me, first class student will not settle for that. It says, I don't like it. He didn't give me the satisfactory answer. I'm going to a different church. And that's a smart choice. But if you're a low type of student, you can go to any place. It doesn't really matter. It's like being a blind person. You can go anywhere in any room. They all look the same, dark. Same color. You don't have to paint it. You don't have to match anything. They all look the same color. It's very much like that. So, in order to really evaluate the systems, as we said, first I have to become a good student. Take my path seriously and set my goals clearly. There are people who go to temples and churches, well, I need some healing, pray over my grandson. Or, well, I'm looking for a girlfriend, pray over me. Or somebody said, my mother is sick, pray over her. And then they never show up. So that's all they're going to get. That's what they ask for. Now those, hopefully your question is more intended to find out people who are taking their spirituality seriously and want to develop their spiritual life to the maximum. And if that is the case, then they have to ask and find the right church or right system by asking questions and not accept incomplete, wishy-washy, deceptive answers. Because you don't accept them at Macy's, right? And you don't accept them even when you go to Chevrolet dealership. They say, no, tell me, what did you just say? You do that.
Right.
So you have to use same kind of methodology. So in order to make that difference, you realize that your critical thinking has to be awake. So different schools and different paths and different methods look at the whole population and take on a personality of the people they serve. You see?
Wow.
It's just like you have hamburgers place and you have hot dog stands, and then you also have London Chop House, and then you know, you got a Margaritaville, and then you got a home delivery service. You have a whole lot of variety of foods and the quality and the standards. Similarly, you have a similar thing going on, and it would be wrong on my part to say that one is not good or other one is better. I think it's more like a matching program.
Like a flavor. Or
like a school system that look, in a school you have second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade. So first we have to know what level I am and how far I want to go, then do a matching to what works best for you. That works much better.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I would say that it's very important to ask questions and do not accept answers if they're not acceptable to you. They have to answer questions in your terms. If a spiritual system is not willing to do that, it's not for you. It's not for you.
So we need to take responsibility for our growth, and if we're going to be passive, we'll get passive results. But if we're assertive and plan, you mentioned planning and critical thinking, then we'll get results. Kind of like anything in life. If you put the effort in and grow the seed and do the work, the garden grows.
Like my biggest frustration, because my background is I'm an engineer with an MBA degree, and I'm used to always knowing, well, how is the project going? Are we late? How much late are we? How are we going to fix it? And most spiritual systems, they are kind of, they pull you in, and after that they don't give you any kind of feedback, how are you doing? I mean, even if they're going to teach you, say, scriptures or prayers, nobody ever came back to me and asked me, let's see if you know how to pray. Tell me, what do you say in your prayer? How often you pray? What do you say? And what are you thinking and what are you feeling? And I realized that those things are very, very important. But nobody ever asked me that question. It's the same thing with meditation. If they said meditation is good, and I was able to get some benefits out of it, but nobody ever came back and said, well, tell me about your meditation. How is it going? I have all kinds of thoughts running through my head, and nobody told me what to do. So what is the idea here? Because the assumption here is that most people are just a bunch of dummies when it comes to spiritual. And to me, that's a very unfair attitude on part of spiritual organizations to take, that they just kind of reel you in, and then after that just keep giving donations of 10%, but they're not accountable or responsible to giving any tangible feedback. Well, you know what? You got to do more of this, less of this, because you keep coming in your way, keep blocking yourself. Or say to go from here to Florida will take you so long. and you know what? You keep getting distracted. You're stuck in your garage, and you have not even left your garage. How do you expect to go to Florida? And those things are all meaningful feedbacks. So most of the time they don't give you any kind of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Feedback is basically, well, have you memorized the Bible like back and forth? All right, I can spend my rest of my life memorizing Gita or Quran or Bible, but wait a minute, what about my life? What about my stress? What about my relationship skills?
Mm-hmm.
What about my happiness level? That person is very joyful. Help me to become like that person. You know?
Mm-hmm.
How about my mind runs to all kinds of thoughts? When will they stop?
Mm-hmm.
And those are necessary things. And we all need that kind of feedback. And they are very specific questions and very specific deliverables.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, to any advanced students, those things are very meaningful. And next generation, if they don't get results, they are not going to go to churches.
Mm-hmm.
Remember my words. Because they will not see value in it.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they change their way of thinking, and that they start talking the language that the generation or the customer speak, then they're going to lose them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's probably already been happening. Yeah.
Right.
So this is a whole different paradigm shift, where instead of the model where there's just one person or a few persons up there doing output, giving information, you're talking about a more circular thing where there's feedback and there's
yes, because this is we are not living in a time where this is not your grandmother's religion or spirituality anymore. People are more alert, they're more awake, and they're asking more questions. They are becoming responsible with their health, what they eat, they exercise. A lot of positive things are happening, and believe me, more and more, world is already made its turn towards more enlightenment.